The first thing we have to do is take off the side cover and expose the sprocket underneath. You know, these bolts from the factory, when they put them on, they don't put them on too tight, so they're very easy to remove. Now you got to hang on to these because these are the same nuts that we're going to use to bolt the Lewis winch onto this little saw. So we'll just set them in front there for now. That side cover easily pulls off. Now the next thing we have to do is we have to remove this little retainer clip and remove this sprocket, because we're not going to use that when we're using the Lewis winch. That's strictly for the chain. Now you have to be careful popping this off because it can go flying and you'll lose it. But retain it. We're going to put that right back on again. This little washer can go in back in our cup, so we retain all of our parts and the sprocket, and then just put this little retainer clip back on again so that the brake drum doesn't fall off while we're doing our assembly. There, that's in place. Now the next thing we're going to do with this little solo saw is this particular saw has a bar adjuster that sticks out a little bit and can get in the way when we're mounting this on the Lewis winch. So it's a very simple procedure to remove that. There's two little Torx head screws. And we'll just prepare our screwdriver. Now just before we proceed with our preparation of our little solo 4.4 saw, I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I want to talk to you about adjuster assemblies. And the other thing is to let you know that these steps that we're doing aren't necessary if you're using our universal adapter kit. These are just for the direct mount adapter kit. Now what happens with a direct mount adapter kit, because the saw is coming right up flush against the side of the Lewis winch, we have to deal with the adjuster assembly. Now on most saws, the adjuster assembly is a little protrusion that sticks out between the mounting studs. So if you'll look on the back of the Lewis winch, on the mounting flange, you'll see that there's two slots. The largest slot on the top is where the mounting studs are going to come through, and we're going to put a couple nuts on the back. We're going to do that in a minute. But if you look below that, you'll see that there's another smaller slot. Now that slot is where your little protruding adjuster assembly is going to drop into place. Now you may have to turn it forward or back just to make sure that your adapter lines up, but that's what that slot is for. Now every saw is a little bit different. If you look at the Husqvarna saw that I've got in front of me, you'll notice that when you pull off the side cover, the adjuster assembly comes off. Now there's another little metal plate in behind that. We recommend that you take that off also, but you don't have to deal with the adjuster assembly at all when you're bolting that saw up to the Lewis winch. Now if you look at our solos, we sell 3 solo saws on our website. In front of me I have the largest, the 6.9 horsepower. You get the full 8,000 pounds of pulling power if you use that particular saw. Now you'll see that it has an adjuster assembly that will drop right into that slot as the Lewis winch is designed for. And our mid-range, our little 5.8 horsepower saw, is exactly the same as that. But our small 4.4 horsepower saw is unique. And so with that particular saw, we have to remove the adjuster assembly. Now the reason for that is that it's a smaller saw and the spacing between the studs and the adjuster assembly is different than the one on the Lewis winch. It's a great little saw, nice lightweight, good power to weight ratio, and so it's only one more step, one screw, just to remove that adjuster assembly. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. And this is a number 15 Torx head. And this is just holding on this little aluminum plate, which again, we're not going to need it with the Lewis winch, so we'll take that off and retain it for later, as well as the screw. Now, in the adjuster, there's this handy little screwdriver they gave us with the solo saw, which will work good to just back off this adjuster so we can get at the other screw. And we need our number 20 Torx head to take that screw out. Once we've removed that screw, we're just going to pop this, the whole adjuster assembly right out of there. This handy little screwdriver they gave us is just perfect for that job. Out comes the whole assembly, the little O-ring in behind it. Drop that into your cup and retain it in case you ever want to put a bar on your saw and use it as a chainsaw. Okay, we're now ready to bolt the Lewis winch up to the saw. Our adapter kit is in place. The only thing we're going to require the 2 nuts that normally hold the bar on. Now we're just going to double check and make sure we did pick the right adapter, and that should just easily drop into place. There we go. So we've got the right adapter. This comes together. Line the adapter up and line up the 2 bolts. It's ready to go now except for the 2 nuts. So we'll just flip the whole assembly on its side because it's much easier to do this from the bottom, and just use this fair lead, hold everything in place while we Well, I get my big fat fingers in here and start these nuts. Once we've got the nuts on and tightened up, then we're ready to fire up the saw and wind up the cable. Okay, one nut successfully started. Just tighten that up slightly. Once that's snugged up a bit, I can turn this whole assembly right upside down. That'll make it easier to start the second nut. Okay, I get my other big fat finger in here. Okay. Now again, don't forget a little bit of Loctite on those nuts. You don't want them coming off at the worst possible time. Snug these up real nice and tight. Just make sure that your adapter is in place. It hasn't slipped in this process. Okay, that's one nice and tight. This one I can just spin on with my fingers before I tighten it down. There we go. Our little solo saw and our Lewis winch all ready to go. The next job is just to wind up the cable, and we can go find something heavy to pull.